I couldn't breathe. My hand trembled as I stared at my phone, unable to tear my eyes away from the screen where my mother sat, so unguarded, so unaware. Her voice, sharp and dismissive, cut through the silence of my hotel room. "Sid, oh please," she scoffed, swirling the wine in her glass as though the words rolling off her tongue were no more than the casual complaints of someone who had no idea how deeply they were cutting. "My daughter thinks selling houses makes her successful. She couldn't hack it in nursing school. Now she's just wandering through life like a desperate failure." It wasn't just the words. It was the way she delivered them, so effortlessly, so smug. As if I were the punchline of a joke that no one had bothered to tell me I was part of. I could hear the others laughing in the background, my aunt and uncle's voices, almost encouraging her, as though they found it all so amusing. I hadn't even known about this live stream. It wasn't like Jenna to send me such things. "You need to see this. I'm so sorry. An hour ago, the text came through with a link, the sting of her apology already setting the stage for the hurt to come. I was far away, caught up in a real estate conference, when my family gathered around that dinner table, blissfully unaware of the knife they were about to twist. My name is Son Ed Sullivan, I thought, but the words felt foreign now. 32, I thought, staring at my reflection in the hotel room's window. The past 5 years had been one endless round of self-sacrifice, quietly paying my mother's medical bills, driving her to appointments, standing in for the father who had been gone for too long. All while I worked 60-hour weeks, pushing a real estate business that barely left room for anything else. No one at that table knew that I had emptied my savings account to pay for treatments when her insurance refused to cover them, when her diagnosis seemed too much for one woman to bear. "It's such a shame." My mother's voice floated from the screen again. She could have been a nurse, had such grand dreams, but now she just sells houses to people who actually succeeded in life. I could hear the laughter in her voice as she told her audience of aunts and uncles about my failings, how I dropped out of nursing school, how the career I had built, this thing that had taken everything from me, was nothing more than a joke to her. She had no idea she was being filmed, no clue that her cruel words would be broadcast to an audience that would never understand. Jenna's camera had captured it all, the phone aimed so casually at my mother's lap, catching the unspeakable cruelty of her words as she mocked me for my choices, for my life. The video dragged on, a slow burn that threatened to consume me. "Suni just doesn't have what it takes," she said, stretching dramatically to grasp her wine glass, the same one I had picked out for every family gathering. "Some people just aren't cut out for real achievement." The words were a slap in the face, and as the camera panned away from her, the silence in my hotel room felt suffocating. My hands shook as the tears finally broke free. I've always told myself it was just her pain talking, I thought, trying to justify the abuse, trying to explain away the bitterness that often spilled from her mouth. Maybe it was her way of motivating me, of pushing me harder. But this wasn't a momentary lapse in judgment. This wasn't just the product of her old-school tough love approach. This was her truth. And now, there was undeniable proof of it. The text came through from Jenna again. I didn't realize what she was saying until it was too late. "Do you want me to take the video down?" I stared at the message, the blinking cursor daring me to respond. "No," I typed back, almost without thinking. "Leave it up. I need to show you something tomorrow when I get back." The drive home the next day was a blur of motion, of endless roads that stretched ahead, offering no answers, no peace. The pain from my mother's words hung in the air, thick and suffocating as I replayed every word she had said. The journey felt endless, as if the miles between Providence and home were nothing but a metaphor for the distance now between me and everything I had once believed to be true. 5 years ago, my life had been so different. I had been thriving, halfway through nursing school, sure of the path I was on. But everything had changed in the blink of an eye when my mother collapsed at work, the diagnosis of rheumatoid arthritis coming like a thunderclap. And suddenly, all of my plans, all of my dreams, were nothing more than a distant memory. "How am I supposed to afford all this?" she had asked, eyes wide with fear, as I held her hand in that sterile hospital room. "The insurance barely covers anything." I promised her then that I would help, that I would take care of everything. She was my world, my everything. I had always believed we shared a bond, one that couldn't be broken, no matter what. But I never realized that I would be asked to break my own dreams to keep her afloat. I'd put my nursing education on hold, taking up real estate to support her. It was supposed to be temporary, just until she stabilized, just until I had enough to go back to school. But temporary turned into years, and instead of returning to school, I became the sole manager of her care, navigating the insurance mazes and covering every expense. And yet, as I sat there in that hotel room, hearing my mother tear apart the life I had sacrificed everything for, I realized just how much I had lost. My career, my identity, my mother's respect. Every part of me that I had given, and for what? To be mocked, belittled, reduced to a joke? The weight of her words still echoed in my mind as I sat in my driveway, the engine of my car humming softly beneath me. I hadn't told my mother I was coming home today. She thought I was still in Providence, networking at the real estate conference, an opportunity I had cut short, abruptly and without explanation, after seeing the video. I sat there, staring at the house in front of me, the quiet of the moment pressing down on my chest. The distance between me and the chaos of the past few days seemed impossible to bridge, but something had shifted inside me. "You have to do this for yourself," I thought as my phone buzzed, snapping me back to reality. A message from Jenna. "I'm at the coffee shop on Maple. Can meet whenever you're ready." I took a deep breath, trying to steady my nerves. I reached for my laptop bag, fingers brushing over the worn leather as I pulled out the folder labeled Mom Medical. Inside was everything I had kept, every payment, every insurance premium, every prescription, every specialist visit, meticulously cataloged, every document a reminder of how much I had given. I never imagined this folder would be the one to prove the betrayal. For tax purposes, sure, but now, it was the evidence I needed to finally confront the reality I had been ignoring for so long. With a final, steadying breath, I texted Jenna back. "Be there in 15 minutes. The coffee shop was busy, but I spotted Jenna immediately, her vibrant blue hair and oversized headphones impossible to miss. As she saw me, her face crumpled, her eyes full of guilt. "I'm so sorry," she blurted out before I even had a chance to sit down. I didn't know she would say those things. I was just doing my usual live stream, and then Aunt Patricia started talking about you, and it got so mean. "It's not your fault." "I need to thank you, Jenna." I cut her off before she could continue. She looked confused. "Thank me for what?" I placed the medical folder on the table, the weight of its contents heavier than I'd ever felt. I opened it slowly, revealing the catalog of payments, appointment schedules, and insurance correspondence. 5 years of my life laid out for her to see. "For showing me the truth," I said quietly, my voice steady, but the words felt like they were carrying more weight than I could bear. "I've been paying for everything. Her medications, treatments, insurance premiums, everything." Jenna's eyes widened as she flipped through the documents. "This is thousands of dollars. Over 100,000. I nodded, my fingers trembling as I pulled the folder back towards me. I put my entire life on hold for her. My nursing degree, my savings, even relationships. Everything went on the back burner because I thought she needed me. Jenna's expression shifted from shock to anger as she looked up from the paperwork. And she calls you a failure? That's so messed up. I swallowed hard, the lump in my throat threatening to choke me. I always thought her criticism was her way of motivating me, I said, a bitter laugh escaping my lips. That underneath it all, she appreciated what I was doing. I guess I was wrong. So, what are you going to do? Jenna asked, her voice soft but insistent. I took a deep breath, the decision finally crystallizing as I spoke. I'm done. I've already got the paperwork ready to remove myself from her accounts. You're not going to confront her? I shook my head. What would be the point? She'd just deny it or tell me I'm being too sensitive. I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app. As I transferred the funds I had been putting aside for my mother's next round of treatments into my personal savings account, the action felt small but monumental. I've spent 5 years being her safety net while she dismisses everything I do. That ends today. Jenna stared at me, her eyes wide with surprise. Wow. Are you sure? I've never been more sure of anything, I replied, surprising myself with how steady my voice sounded. I'm done being the fallback. I've spent too long watching my life slip away while I waited for her to appreciate me. I pulled out the acceptance letter from the nursing program, the one I had nearly deferred again because of Mom's planned treatments. I pushed it across the table to Jenna. I start in the fall. I'm not deferring again. Jenna reached across the table and squeezed my hand. I'll send you the full video, just in case you need it. As I left the coffee shop, I felt something shift inside me, a weight lifting that I hadn't realized had been there for so long. For the first time in a long time, I was choosing myself. The guilt I had expected to feel was nowhere to be found. Instead, there was a sense of clarity and purpose that had been absent from my life for far too long. The next day, I called the insurance company. You want to remove yourself as the guarantor on Patricia Sullivan's accounts? The representative asked, her voice laced with confusion. May I ask why? Personal reasons? I replied, my voice remarkably steady. I'll no longer be responsible for any payments after this month. The representative hesitated, then continued. I should inform you that without your support, your mother's premium will increase substantially, and her coverage options may change. I understand, I replied calmly. Could you please send a formal letter explaining these changes to her home address? I want to make sure she's fully informed. I knew exactly what I was doing. The letter would arrive in a week, giving me time to implement the rest of my plan before the inevitable confrontation. My phone had been buzzing with messages from my mother since yesterday, each one a reminder of the storm that was coming. But this time, I wasn't afraid. This time, I was ready. The morning passed in a haze, each text from my mother cutting deeper, but not enough to make me waver. She had no idea what I was doing, but she'd expected me to drive her to a doctor's appointment. I hadn't shown up. The first message came through, sharp and accusing. Where are you? I've been waiting for an hour. The doctor's office called. They said my insurance card was declined. Fix it. ASAP. Are you ignoring me? Answer your damn phone, Sid. Each word was like a lash, pulling me further into a decision I'd known was coming, but had always feared. No, I thought, closing the messages and switching my phone to silent. She wasn't getting the satisfaction of hearing my hesitation anymore. I was doing this. I had to do this. The hours bled together, and by evening, the financial separations were nearly done. I had done everything I could, and the plan I had been building over the past week was ready to be put into motion. I opened my laptop and began composing the email. I was precise. calculated, every word chosen carefully. "Dear family," I began, my fingers steady on the keys. "After much consideration, I will no longer be managing my mother's medical care or financial support." I continued, detailing the total amount I had spent over the last 5 years. $120,000, money that had been siphoned off without a single thank you. I'd become so accustomed to the grind that I hadn't even noticed how much I had sacrificed. Until now. It had been my duty, I told myself, to keep things together, to keep her life stable. But as the words filled the screen, I finally realized the truth. I had been the one holding her up all this time, while she dismissed every effort I made. I added the breakdown, an irrefutable catalog of everything I had done, everything I had given, every hour I had spent managing her care. Attached is a detailed breakdown of the support I've provided over the years. I wrote, my voice steady even as my heart raced. Should any of you wish to help, I hope you understand that this was not a decision I made lightly. I hit send, the finality of the action ringing in my ears like a death knell. The doorbell rang almost immediately, its shrill sound slicing through the heavy air of my apartment. I looked through the peephole. My mother stood on the other side, her face twisted in anger. "Sid, I know you're in there. Open this door right now." Her voice was filled with venom, the sound of it making my stomach tighten. She pounded against the door, and for a moment, I almost felt the urge to let her in. Almost. "You've missed 3 of my calls. My medication refill was denied at the pharmacy." "What are you doing?" I took a deep breath, steadying myself. The time for weakness had passed. "I'm not doing this anymore, Mom. You'll be receiving information from the insurance company soon. I suggest you read it carefully." Her voice faltered, confusion flooding her face. "What are you talking about?" "Open this door." "No," I said, the words surprisingly firm, powerful on my lips. "I've heard what you really think of me. I think it's time we both moved on with our lives." The silence that followed stretched, heavy with disbelief, before her voice exploded. "Is this about money? After everything I've done for you?" I almost laughed at the irony, but I held it in. "Goodbye, Mom." The words felt like they had been sitting at the edge of my tongue for years. "Please don't come back." She shouted something else, but I didn't hear it. I turned away from the door, walking down the hall, my steps steady. As I reached my laptop again, the last of my resolve solidified. I sat down and kept working. Each click, each keystroke felt like a final severing, a cutting of ties that had held me captive for far too long. The fallout came fast. Within hours of sending the email, my phone exploded. Aunt Maureen, shocked and appalled by my abandonment. Uncle James calling me selfish and cruel. My cousin Thomas, suggesting I sort out whatever petty disagreement I was having with Mom. But then there was Aunt Bridget. Her message was different. "It takes courage to stand up for yourself, dear. Call me if you need anything." Her words were a balm to my raw, bleeding heart. I blocked my mother's number first, then, one by one, muted the relatives who couldn't be bothered to ask for my side of the story. The silence that followed was strangely peaceful, a quiet I hadn't known in years. 3 days later, I sat in the admissions office at Boston City Nursing School. The advisor, Ms. Sullivan, reviewed my file with a raised eyebrow. "You've been away from the program for quite some time," she said. "But your previous academic record is strong. You'll need to take a placement exam to determine if any refresher courses are necessary." "I understand," I said, my voice steady, and for the first time in ages, I felt the stirring of excitement in my chest. "I've already started reviewing my old textbooks." As I walked across campus, a feeling I hadn't experienced in years flooded through me. Hope, real hope, and for the first time in my life, It was mine to hold. Afterward, a sense of belonging washed over me, something I hadn't felt in years. This was where I was meant to be. Finally, pursuing my own dreams instead of living in the shadow of someone else's needs. The adjustment to my real estate business would be necessary, but it was manageable. I'd focus on fewer clients, move toward higher value properties, and hire a part-time assistant to handle the administrative tasks I could no longer afford to juggle. My income would take a hit, but without my mother's growing medical expenses, I could navigate it. I had already started planning, mapping out how my business could evolve to accommodate my new life. And for the first time, the vision for my future felt clear and mine. When I returned home later that day, a formal-looking envelope sat on the counter, its sharp corners cutting into my still, fragile calm. It was from the insurance company, addressed to my mother, though it had been mistakenly sent to my address. As I tore open the envelope, I saw that it detailed the changes to her coverage, the premium increase, and the fact that I was no longer the guarantor. A part of me expected guilt to creep in, but instead, I felt vindicated. This was the inevitable consequence of my decision, and somehow, it felt right. A few moments later, my phone rang. Jenna's name flashed on the screen. "Have you seen what's happening in the family group chat?" she asked without preamble. "I left all those chats," I admitted, knowing exactly what was coming. "Your mom is telling everyone you've had some kind of mental breakdown. She's saying you've been under stress from your failing business, and that's why you're acting out." I could hear the sarcastic air quotes in Jenna's voice. I sighed. Classic deflection. "That's not all," Jenna continued. "She didn't realize I was still in the chat, and now she's convinced Aunt Maureen to let her move in temporarily until she sorts out her medical situation." "Of course she has," I muttered under my breath, shaking my head. Mom's always been good at finding someone to rescue her. After hanging up, I opened my laptop, the weight of the decision heavy as I stared at the video file Jenna had sent. The live stream that had changed everything. The one I hadn't watched since that first devastating moment in the hotel room. My finger hovered over the play button. There was power in this recording. Power to expose my mother for who she really was behind closed doors, to vindicate myself in the face of the lies she was spreading. But did I need that vindication? The family members willing to believe her narrative without even asking for my side? Were they really worth convincing? I closed the laptop without playing the video. I had the evidence if I needed it, but right now, I had more important things to focus on. My nursing application was complete. The placement exam was scheduled, and for the first time in years, I was planning for my future, not managing someone else's crisis. The insurance letter sat on my counter, a cold reminder of the changes I had set in motion. After a moment's consideration, I addressed a new envelope to my mother's actual residence, placed the letter inside, and added a short note. This was sent to my address by mistake. I suggest you read it carefully. No signature, no emotion, just the facts. As I slid the envelope into the mailbox, another piece of the burden lifted. The consequences of her actions were now hers to bear, not mine. 2 weeks passed in relative calm. I threw myself into preparations for nursing school, studying during every spare moment between real estate showings and client meetings. The placement exam was scheduled for Friday, and with each practice test, my confidence grew. But then came the ambush. I was just finishing a showing of a 3-bedroom colonial in Brookline when I spotted them in my rear-view mirror. My mother and Aunt Maureen waiting beside my mother's car in the parking lot. My first instinct was to drive away, but I knew they had already seen me, and running would only postpone the inevitable. I took a deep breath, steadied myself, and stepped out of my car. "We need to talk." My mother's voice was sickly sweet, too forced for my liking. I could see the strain in her face. her hair unstyled, her frame leaning heavily on her cane, a prop she typically only used to emphasize her condition when she wanted sympathy. The familiar sensation of dread twisted in my gut, but I held my ground. This was the moment that had been building for so long, and I wasn't about to back down. Not now. Not ever. Again. I have nothing to say, I replied, my keys gripped tightly in my hand, every word measured and calm, though my heart raced with the suffocating tension between us. Aunt Maureen stepped forward, her voice full of concern. Your mother is struggling, Sid. Her medication costs have tripled, and she can't get appointments with her specialists anymore. Is that what you wanted? What I wanted, I said carefully, was to be treated with basic respect and appreciation. What I wanted was recognition for 5 years of sacrifice. What I wanted was a mother who didn't call me a desperate failure behind my back. My mother's face paled. What are you talking about? I met her gaze steadily. I saw the video, Mom. Jenna's live stream from the family dinner. I heard everything you said about me. A flash of recognition crossed her face, quickly replaced by defensive anger. You're twisting things out of context. I was just venting a little frustration. Everyone does that? Aunt Maureen looked confused. What video? Patricia, what is she talking about? I almost laughed at the irony. My mother hadn't even told her closest allies about the live stream, probably hoping I'd never find out. Show her the video if you want, I said to my mother. Or don't. It doesn't change anything. I've made my decision. My mother switched tactics, her voice breaking with an almost practiced desperation. I'm your mother, Sined. After everything I've done for you, how can you abandon me when I need you most? Something snapped inside me. 5 years of suppressed resentment boiled to the surface. Everything you've done for me? I echoed incredulously, the words slipping out with a bitter laugh. Let me tell you what I've done for you. I put my entire life on hold. I spent over $100,000 on your care. I drove you to every appointment, managed every prescription, fought with insurance companies on your behalf, and in return, you called me pathetic. You mocked my career, the career I built specifically to support you. My hands were shaking, but my voice remained steady, my words cutting through the air. I sent proof to everyone in the family, every payment, every appointment, every sacrifice. So don't stand there and act like I'm the villain in this story. Aunt Maureen looked at my mother differently now, doubt creeping into her expression. Patricia, she said slowly, her voice quiet. What exactly was in this video? My mother ignored her, focusing her desperation solely on me. I'm sorry if I hurt your feelings, but this is an extreme overreaction. I'm facing serious health complications. I'm aware, I replied calmly, my voice unyielding. And I've provided you with 5 years of continuous support. Now it's someone else's turn. I turned to Aunt Maureen. She's living with you now, right? Has she asked you for money yet? How many doctor's appointments have you driven her to? How many prescriptions have you picked up? Aunt Maureen's silence was answer enough. That's what I thought, I said, turning back to my car. I wish you both well, but I won't be manipulated anymore. This isn't over, my mother called after me. I paused, with my hand on the car door, looking back over my shoulder. You're right about one thing, Mom. Family doesn't walk away from family, but family also doesn't tear each other down or take advantage of each other. So, maybe ask yourself who really walked away first. As I drove off, I glanced in my rearview mirror. My mother was gesturing wildly, clearly berating Aunt Maureen for something. Some things never change, I thought, but I had changed. As I headed home to continue studying for my nursing exam, I realized I didn't feel guilty anymore. For the first time in years, I felt free. 3 months passed in a blur of activity. I aced my nursing placement exam, enrolled in the accelerated program for students returning to education, and reorganized my real estate business to accommodate my new schedule. I hired Kylie, a bright college student, as my part-time assistant to handle paperwork and coordinate showings. The transition wasn't seamless. There were late nights, scheduling conflicts, and the occasional bout of self-doubt. But each small victory reaffirmed that I had made the right choice. The weight I'd been carrying for years had lifted, and I approached each day with renewed energy and purpose. My family situation had reached an uneasy stalemate after our confrontation in the parking lot. My mother had apparently shown her true colors to Aunt Maureen, who quietly reached out to me a week later. "I had no idea what you'd been dealing with," Aunt Maureen admitted over coffee. "Patricia told me you were being difficult and selfish. I should have asked for your side of the story." "It's okay," I replied, surprising myself with how much I meant it. Mom has always been good at controlling the narrative. The Boston Real Estate Association's annual award ceremony wasn't something I'd paid much attention to, but this time, things were different. The future was finally mine to shape, and this time, I was doing it on my own terms. In previous years, I had been too consumed with managing my mother's care to attend industry events. But when my broker nominated me for the Resilience in Real Estate Award, recognizing agents who overcame significant challenges while maintaining their business, I felt a wave of unexpected pride. It wasn't just the nomination. It was the acknowledgement of everything I had been through, all the sacrifices I had made, and how far I had come. "You're a shoo-in," my colleague Jeffrey insisted during our weekly office meeting. "You've closed more deals than anyone else in the office while starting nursing school. If that's not resilience, I don't know what is." I didn't expect to win, but I was looking forward to the ceremony, a chance to celebrate how far I had come, both professionally and personally. The evening of the ceremony arrived, and I found myself in a hotel ballroom, surrounded by Boston's real estate community. The air was thick with conversation and anticipation. I wore a dark blue dress I had bought specifically for the occasion, the first non-work-related splurge I'd allowed myself in years. After grabbing a glass of champagne from a passing waiter, I mingled with colleagues and reconnected with industry contacts I hadn't seen in ages. "Sid Sullivan," a familiar voice called out. I turned to see Margot Stevens, one of the most successful brokers in Boston. "I was hoping to see you here. I've been hearing great things about your work in the Brookline market." We chatted about recent property trends, and I found myself easily engaged in the conversation. A welcome change from the distracted, overwhelmed person I had been for so long. I was finally able to focus on something outside of the constant pressure of my mother's needs. My phone vibrated in my clutch. At first, I ignored it, fully present in the professional moment I was enjoying, but then it vibrated again. A knot formed in my stomach. I excused myself and stepped into a quiet hallway. I glanced at the screen. 5 missed calls from a number I didn't recognize, and a text message. "It's Jenna using Uncle Patrick's phone. Emergency. Call back ASAP." I could feel the familiar weight of guilt trying to creep in, but I steadied myself as I dialed Jenna's number. "Jenna, what's going on?" "I'm so sorry to bother you," Jenna said, her voice tight with tension. "I'm at the hospital with your mom. She fell, and they think it might be a reaction to her new medication. She's asking for you." I closed my eyes, bracing for the wave of guilt and obligation to hit me. But it didn't come the way it used to. It was there, but now it was manageable, not overwhelming. "Is she stable?" I asked. "Yes, but they're keeping her overnight for observation." I didn't want to call, but Uncle Patrick insisted. I heard muffled voices and then a shuffling sound as the phone changed hands. "Sid, Patrick here." His voice was clipped, urgent. "I know things have been difficult, But your mother needs you. The doctors have questions about her medical history that we can't answer." As we spoke, I saw the ceremony attendees moving into the main ballroom. The awards presentation was starting soon. "I understand," I said, making my decision. "But I'm at an important work event right now. I can come by the hospital afterward?" "This is your mother we're talking about." Patrick's voice hardened. "Surely whatever party you're at can wait." The old me would have acquiesced immediately, abandoning my own needs to rush to her side. But I wasn't that person anymore. "I'll be there in about 2 hours," I said firmly. "Please tell the doctors I'll answer any questions then. And Patrick, thank you for being there for her." I ended the call and took a deep breath. As I turned to rejoin the ceremony, I caught my reflection in a decorative mirror. Shoulders back, head high, eyes clear. For the first time in years, I recognized myself. And the winner of the Resilience in Real Estate Award goes to Sid Sullivan! The room erupted into applause as my name was announced. For a moment, I was frozen in shock. I genuinely hadn't expected to win. Jeffrey nudged me with his elbow, grinning broadly. As I rose and made my way to the stage, the crystal trophy felt substantial in my hands. As I approached the microphone and looked out at the audience, I saw colleagues, mentors, and competitors all united in recognition of my work. The validation was overwhelming. "Thank you," I began, my voice steadier than I felt. "This means more to me than I can express. The past few years have been challenging, balancing a demanding career with personal obligations. There were many days when I wasn't sure I could keep going. I paused, thinking of the countless nights I'd spent researching treatment options for my mother, the early mornings rushing to prepare for showings after sleepless nights of worry. But real estate isn't just about selling homes, it's about resilience, adapting to changing markets, overcoming obstacles, and finding solutions when it seems impossible. Those same skills helped me navigate my personal challenges and eventually find my way back to my original passion: nursing. The crowd murmured with interest at this revelation. I'm now pursuing my nursing degree while continuing to serve my real estate clients, and I couldn't be happier. So, this award isn't just for professional resilience. It's a reminder that we can reinvent ourselves at any point in our lives. Thank you for this honor. The applause followed me back to my seat, where Jeffrey and our other colleagues congratulated me with enthusiastic handshakes and hugs. As the ceremony wrapped up, several people approached to ask about my nursing studies, genuinely interested in my unconventional career path. For the first time in a long while, I felt the power of my own choices, of my ability to shape my future on my terms. This was my victory. By the time I checked my phone again, it was nearly 9 o'clock. 3 more missed calls from Uncle Patrick and a text from Jenna. "She's stable. Take your time." I gathered my things, said my goodbyes, and headed for my car, the trophy carefully wrapped in my tote bag. The drive to the hospital was 20 minutes, but it felt like hours as I mentally prepared for the inevitable confrontation. I had done everything I could, but I knew this moment was coming, and there was no escaping it. When I arrived at the hospital room, I found my mother sitting up in bed, looking remarkably alert for someone who had supposedly experienced a serious medical emergency. Uncle Patrick sat in a visitor's chair beside her, while Jenna stood awkwardly near the window, as though unsure of her role in the drama that was unfolding. Finally, my mother said as I entered, her tone acidic, "Nice of you to fit us into your busy schedule." I set my tote bag down in the corner, the trophy box visible. "Hello, Mom." I came as soon as my event was over. "How are you feeling? How do you think I'm feeling?" she snapped. I collapsed. "I could have died, and you were too busy partying to care." Uncle Patrick cleared his throat, clearly uncomfortable. The doctor said it was likely a reaction to the new medication. They've adjusted the dosage, and she should be fine to go home tomorrow. I nodded, keeping my expression neutral. That's good news. I'm glad it wasn't more serious. My mother's face contorted with frustration at my calm demeanor. This wouldn't have happened if you hadn't abandoned me. My new insurance is useless. I can't afford half my medications, and these new doctors don't understand my condition like my specialist did. I'm sorry to hear that, I said genuinely. It must be difficult adjusting to new healthcare providers. My measured response seemed to infuriate her further. Is that all you have to say after what you've put me through? I glanced at Jenna, whose expression reflected a mix of embarrassment and sympathy. She gave me a subtle nod of encouragement. Mom, I said quietly, my voice calm but firm. I supported you for 5 years. I put my life on hold to make sure you had the best possible care. I did everything I could for you, and in return, you called me a desperate failure. You mocked the career that paid for your treatments. You laughed at my dreams. Uncle Patrick frowned. What are you talking about, Sini? Jenna stepped forward, her voice quiet but determined. The video, Uncle Patrick? The live stream I accidentally recorded at dinner a few months ago. Mom didn't tell you about that. My mother's face paled. That's completely irrelevant. Sine is twisting things out of context to justify her selfish behavior. I reached into my tote bag and pulled out the trophy, setting it on the bedside table. The crystal caught the light, and the engraving was clearly visible. Resilience in Real Estate, signed Sullivan. I won an award tonight, I explained to Uncle Patrick, for maintaining a successful business despite significant challenges. Those challenges included supporting Mom financially and medically for 5 years, while she belittled my achievements behind my back. Understanding dawned on Uncle Patrick's face as he looked from the trophy to my mother's defensive expression. I didn't come here to argue, I continued. I came because you needed medical information, and I wanted to make sure you were okay. I don't wish you ill, Mom. I never have. I just couldn't keep sacrificing my life for someone who didn't appreciate it. The room fell silent. For once, my mother had no sharp retort, no manipulation tactic ready. She simply stared at the trophy, the visible proof of the success she had so callously dismissed. I should go, I said softly. I have an early class tomorrow. Jenna, can I give you a ride home? As we left the room, I heard Uncle Patrick speaking to my mother in a hushed, questioning tone. The conversation I had been avoiding for months was finally happening. But this time, I wasn't the one fighting to be heard. 3 months later, I stood in my crisp white uniform, hands steady as I administered an IV to my patient. My nursing instructor nodded approvingly as she observed my technique. Excellent work, Sullivan. Your clinical skills are advancing quickly. I smiled as I secured the line. Thank you. It feels like everything's finally clicking into place. After completing my shift at the teaching hospital, I headed to my car, pausing to check my phone. A text from Jenna lit up my screen. Prof interview going viral. 20K views already. I laughed, shaking my head in amazement. Last week, I'd been interviewed by the Boston Medical Journal about career changers entering nursing later in life. The interviewer had been particularly interested in how my real estate experience had prepared me for healthcare. Both fields require attention to detail, strong communication skills, and the ability to help people through major life transitions, I'd explained. And both taught me the importance of boundaries, something every healthcare professional needs. As I drove home, my phone rang through the car's Bluetooth. An unknown number. Hello, Sid. It's Patrick. My uncle's voice sounded hesitant. Do you have a minute? I tensed slightly. Is everything okay? Yes, everything's fine. He paused. I saw your interview. It was quite inspiring. Thank you, I replied, surprised by the compliment. Your mother saw it too, he added quietly. I waited, bracing myself for news of her latest criticism or complaint. She didn't say much, Patrick continued. But I think seeing you in that nursing uniform, it finally made things real for her. You really are doing it, becoming a nurse just like you always wanted. I pulled into my driveway, letting the car idle as I processed his words. I'm proud of you, he said, filling the silence, and I'm sorry I didn't see what was happening sooner. The simple acknowledgement brought unexpected tears to my eyes. Thank you, Patrick. That means a lot. After we hung up, I sat for a moment, reflecting on how much had changed in less than a year. The trophy from the real estate award sat on my mantle, now next to my nursing textbooks. Physical reminders of my past achievements and future goals. My mother and I still weren't speaking, but that was okay. I had stopped expecting validation from someone incapable of giving it. Instead, I found it in my own accomplishments, in the patients who thanked me for my care, in the professional recognition that validated my choices. As I entered my home, my sanctuary, I smiled at the stack of nursing journals on my coffee table. Tonight, I would study for next week's exam. Perhaps I'd call Jenna later to catch up. Tomorrow, I had 2 property showings scheduled between classes. My life was full, purposeful, and entirely my own. The phone call from Patrick had been an unexpected grace note, not necessary for my happiness, but welcome nonetheless. Whether my mother ever came to terms with my decision didn't define me anymore. I had reclaimed my path, my future, and most importantly, my sense of self-worth. And that, I realized as I settled into study, was the greatest victory of all.